In this lesson, we are going to practice three things. First, we are going to look at the expressions of frequency in Arabic, how to say always and usually. And then we will look at the object pronouns him and her. And finally, we will take your ability to tell time a step further and learn some new structures. However, before we do that, we will look at two cases that are an exception to the rule we have seen last time. بالتوفيق. So the last thing we have seen is how to add object pronouns to verbs, like how to say I help you and he helps me and stuff. And we have two verbs that are an exception to this rule that I want to talk about today. Let's look at this first. So here we have the verb to help, and we want to say I help you, but notice that I'm talking to a male here. What is I help? أساعد. And then to say I help you, we just add ek, we said, right? So أساعدك, I help you. Now, what if I'm talking to a female? So I want to say I help you talking to a female. It would be exactly the same. أساعدك, I help you. And this is the rule we have seen last time, and it applies to all verbs except for two. The first verb, which is أعطي, this will be an exception. أعطي is I give, أعطي is I give, and then if I would say I give you talking to a male, I would do what we have done last time, which is just saying أعطيك, أعطيك, I give you. However, for this verb, for only this verb أعطي, if I'm talking to a female, I would not say أعطيك, but I would say أعطيكي. And again, that's an exception. That's not the rule. The rule is that talking to a male or to a female, it would be the same for all of the verbs, like أساعدك. I would use that with males and females. But for أعطي and for another verb that we will see in a second, it's different. For a male, I would say أعطيك. Talking to a female, I would say أعطيكي, which means I give you. طيب, what about he gives you, talking to a male? Who يعطي, he gives, and then you would be just يعطيك, which is what we have seen last time. Who يعطيك, he gives you. However, if I'm talking to a female and I'm telling her he gives you, it would be يعطيكي, يعطيكي, he gives you. Why? Again, because the verb أعطي or يعطي or whatever the conjugation is an exception. What if I'm saying she gives you, talking to a male? So she gives is تعطي, and then we just add k, تعطيك, تعطيك, she gives you. However, if I'm talking to a female, if I'm saying she gives you, but this time the you is a female, it would be تعطيكي, تعطيكي, she gives you. Let's look at some sentences. أعطيك المفتاح. أعطيك المفتاح. This literally means, do I give you the key? Which means, like, should I give you the keys? Do you want the keys of the car, for example? Because I'm talking to a male, I'm saying أعطيك. Now, if I was not talking to a male and instead I'm talking to a female and I'm asking her, should I give you the keys? I would say أعطيكي المفتاح. أعطيكي المفتاح. The English translation is exactly the same, but this time instead of talking to a male, I'm talking to a female. Let's look at another example. الموظفة, which is the employee, a female one. الموظفة راح تعطيك, she will give you معلومات أكثر. Now, notice I used راح تعطيك and not تعطيكي because I'm talking to a male. So if I'm talking to Khalid, I'm saying Khalid, the employee will give you more information. I would say راح تعطيك معلومات أكثر. طيب, what if I'm talking to a female this time? And again, I'm telling her the employee will, or the worker will give you more information. I'd say الموظفة راح تعطيكي معلومات أكثر. الموظفة راح تعطيكي معلومات أكثر. The English translation is exactly the same. The only difference is that this time, instead of talking to Khalid, I'm talking to Sarah. I'm saying Sarah, the worker will give you more information. الموظفة راح تعطيكي معلومات أكثر. Let's look at this very, very common expression. يعطيك. Notice يعطيك is he gives you, right? يعطيك العافية. عافية means like health. And يعطيك العافية is a very common way of saying thank you in Arabic, which means may he give you health, and he here refers to God. So يعطيك العافية. If I'm talking to a male, I'll just say يعطيك العافية. Talking to a female, though, I'd say يعطيكي العافية. يعطيكي العافية, and it translates to the same translation. يعطيكي العافية. The other verb that is an exception is أودي, which means I take someone somewhere. أودي. If I would say I take you, talking to a female, I would say أوديكي rather than أوديك. So to a male, I would say أوديك. To a female, أوديكي. I take you somewhere. He takes you somewhere. Who? يوديكي. يوديكي. He takes you somewhere. She takes you somewhere would be توديكي. توديكي, she takes you somewhere. Let's look at some sentences. Notice here we are talking to a male. السواق راح يوديك هناك. The driver will take you there. السواق راح يوديك هناك. I'm using just ك because I'm talking to a male. If I'm talking to a female and I'm doing the exact same sentence, I would say السواق راح يوديكي هناك. The driver will take you there. Notice in English it's exactly the same. The only difference is that this time I'm talking to a female. Now we are going to look at 4 expressions of frequency. How to say always, sometimes, and usually in Arabic. Let's start with this one. دائما. دائما, and that means always. For example, I always drink coffee in the morning. أنا دائما أشرب قهوة الصباح. أنا دائما أشرب قهوة الصباح. Another example, the manager always helps me at work. What is a manager? We need to know the gender, so it's a male. المدير, right? المدير دائما يساعدني. Notice he helps me because he's a male. يساعدني في الشغل. المدير دائما يساعدني في الشغل. Next one. في العادة, and we read it as في العادة. في العادة means usually. في العادة. Let's look at this sentence. أنت في العادة متى تجيب أولادك من المدرسة؟ أنت في العادة, so you usually. متى تجيب, when do you bring, remember تجيب, متى تجيب أولادك, your kids, من المدرسة. في العادة متى تجيب أولادك من المدرسة؟ I usually bring my children back from school at 2 in the early afternoon. يلا, let's practice this. So في العادة أجيب أولادي من المدرسة, so from school, الساعة 2, so 2 o'clock. In the early afternoon is الظهر. في العادة أجيب أولادي من المدرسة الساعة 2 الظهر. Next one. أحيانا. أحيانا, which means sometimes. أحيانا. How do you go to work? كيف تروحين الشغل? Because we're asking a female. كيف تروحين الشغل؟ أحيانا يوديني. Remember يوديني, he takes me, right? أحيانا يوديني السواق. So sometimes the driver takes me. And notice that in Arabic, it's okay to have the subject, the driver in this case, after the verb. So أحيانا يوديني السواق. Sometimes the driver takes me. وأحيانا, and sometimes, أروح بسيارتي. سيارتي is my car. أروح بسيارتي, I go by my car. أحيانا يوديني السواق. وأحيانا أروح بسيارتي. Let's look at this one. Sometimes I see my friend in the restaurant and sometimes in the mall. And the gender of the friend is a male. So, أحيانا أشوف صديقي, my friend. Sometimes I see my friend في المطعم. وأحيانا في المول. أحيانا أشوف صديقي في المطعم وأحيانا في المول. Let's look at the next one. أبدا. أبدا. And we can translate أبدا to at all. Let's look at some sentences. أنا ما أتفرج, I don't watch تلفزيون أبدا. I don't watch TV at all. أنا ما أتفرج تلفزيون أبدا. Let's look at another example. My husband doesn't sleep early at all. زوجي ما ينام, he doesn't sleep بدري أبدا. زوجي ما ينام بدري أبدا. Let's look at this one. My friend doesn't give me her purse at all. And the friend is a female. So what is a female friend? صديقة. And then my female friend is صديقتي. So صديقتي ما تعطيني. So تعطي, she gives, me. تعطيني, she gives me. صديقتي ما تعطيني شنطتها أبدا. شنطتها is her purse. And again, شنطة is a purse or a bag in Arabic. So صديقتي ما تعطيني شنطتها أبدا. So we have already covered how to use object pronouns me and you. Like I help you, he helps me, etc. But what if I want to say him or her? Like I help him or you help her. That's what we're going to see now. So let's start with this one. I help him. I help is أساعد. And I help him is أساعده. أساعده. So we're adding this at the end. أساعده. I help him. What about you help him? Talking to a male. أنت تساعده. تساعده. You help him. أنت تساعدين. تساعدينه. تساعدينه. You help him. Now let's try to say he helps him. He helps is يساعد. يساعد. And then يساعده is he helps him. So we're talking about two different people. يساعده. What about she helps him? He تساعد. And then it becomes he تساعده. She helps him. So we just add this at the end to make it him. تساعده. She helps him. Let's look at some sentences. So Khalid, which is a male, Khalid always helps me and I always help him. Khalid دائما يساعدني. He helps me. وأنا دائما أساعده. And I always help him. خالد دائما يساعدني وأنا دائما أساعده. Now let's look at the pronoun her. So how do I say I help her? Again, I help is أساعد. And then to say I help her, we say أساعدها. أساعدها. I help her. What about أنت? You help her. أنت تساعدها. تساعدها. You help her. Talking to a female, you help her again. أنتي تساعدينها. تساعدينها. You help her. Who? He helps her. هو يساعد, right? He helps. هو يساعدها. يساعدها. He helps her. What about she helps her? So we're talking about two different females. He تساعد. She helps. تساعدها. She helps her. تساعدها. Let's look at this example. سارة تساعد أمها. So Sarah helps her mother. Does Sarah help her mother? سارة تساعد أمها. He دائما تساعدها. Yes, she always helps her. So Sarah always helps her mother. He دائما تساعدها. Let's try to do this with another verb. So the verb give. How do I say I give him? So I give is أعطي. And then I give him would be أعطيه. I just add at the end. أعطيه. I give him. What about you give her? And we're talking to a male. So أنت تعطي. And then ها. تعطيها. You give her. تعطيها. Let's look at this example. Abdullah, which is the name of a male. Abdullah ممكن تعطيها. So could you give her تعطيها معلومات أكثر, more information. Abdullah ممكن تعطيها معلومات أكثر. Let's look at this one now. So this is the verb to know. How do I say you female know? أنتِ تعرفين. And how do I say you know him? تعرفينه. تعرفينه. You know him. What about he knows? هو يعرف. هو يعرف. And then I want to say he knows her. So يعرفها. يعرفها. He knows her. يعرفها. Let's look at an example. Sarah knows the manager, but he doesn't know her. So Sarah تعرف المدير, and the manager is a male here, and Sarah is a female. Sarah تعرف المدير, so she knows the manager, بس هو ما يعرفها. يعرف is he knows, and then ها is her. ما يعرفها, he doesn't know her. سارة تعرف المدير, بس هو ما يعرفها. Let's look at this verb now. So this is the verb to see. How do I say she sees? تشوف. And then I'll say she sees him. تشوفه. تشوفه. She sees him. What about I see her? What does I see? أشوفها. أشوفها. I see her. أشوفها. Let's look at this example. Could the doctor see him? We need to know the gender of the doctor, so it's a female doctor. Could the female doctor see him? So she sees him. ممكن الدكتورة تشوفه. So تشوف, she sees, and then تشوفه, she sees him. ممكن الدكتورة تشوفه. Let's try to do this one. This verb is to take someone somewhere, which is أودي for I take someone somewhere. What about you, male? So أنت take him. أنت تودي. and then you take him is أنت توديه. أنت توديه, you take him. And again, it's like you take him somewhere. What about talking to a female now, telling her you take her? So أنتِ تودين, that's you take, and then her is ها. تودينها, you take her, and again you take her somewhere. تودينها. Let's look at an example. Do you take her to school? We're asking a female. Do you take her to school? تودينها المدرسة, and we can add أنتِ of course. أنتِ تودينها المدرسة. Do you take her to school? Now let's look at this verb. This is the opposite of أودي, which is أجيب, to bring back, right? How do I say he brings him? He brings him. So he brings is يجيب, and then he brings him is يجيبه. يجيبه. He brings him. What about she brings her? So she brings is تجيب, and then she brings her, and we're talking of course about two different people. تجيبها. تجيبها. She brings her. Let's look at this example. Who brings Abir back from work? Her husband brings her back. So مين يجيب عبير من الشغل? Who brings Abir back from work? زوجها, her husband, يجيبها, brings her back. زوجها يجيبها. And the last topic in this unit would be again about telling time, but we will take it one step further. So first of all, how do you ask what time is it? كم الساعة? كم الساعة? Let's try to read some time. So the first one is this one. How do you read this? You might be saying الساعة واحد. You're right, but it sounds so weird. And instead we say الساعة واحدة. And واحدة is just the feminine version of واحد. الساعة واحدة. الساعة واحدة. What about this one? الساعة اثنين. الساعة اثنين. What about this one? الساعة 12 و45 دقيقة. الساعة 12 و45 دقيقة. However, we could also say, instead of saying it's like 12 and 45 minutes, we can say it's 1 minus 15 minutes, which is الساعة واحدة 1 إلا 15 دقيقة. 15 دقيقة means 15 minutes. So إلا is the opposite of U. الساعة واحدة إلا 15 دقيقة. Let's look at another example. So كم الساعة؟ الساعة 43 دقيقة. الساعة 43 دقيقة. Or I could say it's 4 minus 20, which is الساعة 4 إلا 20 دقيقة. 20 is 20. الساعة 4 إلا 20 دقيقة. So that's another way of telling time. Let's look at this one now. كم الساعة؟ الساعة واحدة ودقيقتين. Remember, دقيقتين means 2 minutes. الساعة واحدة ودقيقتين. Now let's look at this one, which is very important. What if it's 3 minutes? So we said دقيقتين is 2 minutes, right? And then we said we could say 20 دقيقة for 20 minutes, 40 دقيقة, 45 دقيقة, 30 دقيقة, etc. However, if the number of the minutes is between 3 and 10, so 3, 4, 5, 6, instead of دقيقة, we will use دقايق. And this is actually the case for all Arabic plurals, which we will talk about in the future. But for now, just know that if the minutes is from 3 to 10, instead of دقيقة, you'll use دقايق. For example, this would be الساعة 7 و3 دقايق. الساعة 7 و3 دقايق. Let's try another one. كم الساعة؟ الساعة 8 و5 دقايق. الساعة 8 و5 دقايق instead of دقيقة. What about this one? 10 is also included. So الساعة 9 و10 دقايق. الساعة 9 و10 دقايق. And then as soon as it becomes 11 or anything above that, we go back to دقيقة. So I'd say الساعة 9 و11 دقيقة. الساعة 9 و11 دقيقة. So if the number of minutes is 3 to 10, including 3 and 10, we'll use دقايق. If it's more than that, we use دقيقة. And if it's 2 minutes, we use دقيقتين.